I want to start this off by saying that as I'm recording this, I am still walking in place. So, the grind doesn't stop and it's becoming like a borderline addiction at this point. But I'll get to that in a minute. Just to get into this, a couple years ago, I was almost 300 pounds. In fact, I was 299 on the dot when I started losing weight. For height specifics, 6 foot, 6 foot one. So, not exactly a great look on the BMI scale, but I also just wasn't happy with where I was physically. I don't want to necessarily get into the specifics of this, but another thing that kind of contributed to the change starting was I had some people in my life, not family members, but let's just say friends, who were kind of discouraging about how I was physically and stuff like that. And up to a certain point, I just never really cared in my life to be better, to make these like physical changes, to improve my health, to eat better, things like that. But for some reason, it just kind of clicked one day. And, as the title of the video probably says, I am, an avid gamer. I play a lot of video games. And these days, there are a lot of people who are in great shape that still play video games like every day, even. But for a lot of people, gaming isn't exactly associated with great physical health. Like, that's not the attribute you think of when you think of video games, I'm sure. So, like, at first when I was losing weight, I kind of put the games down for a bit. I was going on walks every single day outside. It's really hot where I'm at. I mean, it's hot where a lot of people are in the summer, but, like, really hot in the desert. So I'd be walking at night a lot of the time, which meant I just simply played less games at first. Without getting too ahead of myself, though, I had a smartwatch that I pulled back out, and smartwatches, they all kind of do the same thing. They track steps, they tell you the time, they can have alarms set. Mine tracks sleep. I don't know if all of them do that, but I had a Versa 3 at the time. Not that it really matters, and I just was really intrigued with the step function. Like, at the time, the internet was kind of just barely hitting that trend of like, oh, you need to hit 10,000 steps. So, like, I saw that and was, kind of skeptical. I was like, oh, it just seems like a random number. Like, I didn't really know, like, what 10,000 steps actually looked like in a day. It's about 2 hours of walking, just to be honest, somewhere in that ballpark at least. Actually, to be a little more specific, it's like an hour and a half for most people, I think. But that's really besides the point. So I started going on walks, and I had this obsession with hitting the high number on my smartwatch. Like, at first, I was like, oh, yeah, I got like 12,000 steps because, I weighed 290 or whatever. And then, I changed my diet a little bit at first as well. Not much, though. Like, I was still eating a ton of calories. And then, with the walking and being like 290, 280 pounds even, I just started losing like the first 10 to 20 pounds like crazy. Like, they just fell off. And nowadays, I have a tendency to nerd out about this stuff, but a lot of that was just bloat weight, salt, water weight. I know that like a lot of gym bros will talk about that, but like that's really what it was at first. It's not like within 3 weeks I actually, burned, what would that be, freaking 70,000 calories, but it was like a lot of calories being burned still. But yeah, I got hooked on walking and just getting these high step counts on the watch. For me, it was about the number at first. Like, it was more about the number of steps I was getting rather than the calories burned. And, I hunted for like 15,000, which, a lot of people get that every day. I hunted for 18,000. And then I remember the first time I like went for 24,000, which, that's like a day at Disneyland, something in that ballpark where you've been at a theme park walking all day, not like consistently walking all day, but you've spent the day on your feet if you're getting into the 20,000 range. And I'll get back to this later, but that's pretty much what I average in a day now. Like, in 2026, I average about 24,000 steps. But back to late 2023, early 2024, I got back into playing basketball for the first time in like 4 years, 3 years, due to like an injury that I had. I just kind of gave up playing it for a while. And I started getting like these higher step counts. Once I got 30,000 steps for the first time, that's when I actually studied calories in, calories out. Now, anybody who's listening to this, if there is anybody listening to this, they already know this probably, but calories in, calories out is how you lose and gain weight. Like, that's the basic understanding of it. Obviously, you have your macros and different things that, determine other health metrics, but in terms of just weight loss, calories were going to be my biggest focus. So, hand in hand with that, calories burned while walking is something I started to study into. And at first, I got a number of something like 100 calories burned for every mile, but it's different depending on your weight and stuff like that. But for me, I just narrowed it down to 10,000 steps equals 450 calories burned. I even kind of lowballed it at the time just to be safe. And this is probably a topic for another day, but at this time, I was eating Taco Bell like legitimately every single day. Oh, and Del Taco, actually. I was eating both of them, like, every day, and still losing weight because of how much I was walking, and also because I was carefully, like, picking what I ordered, but I'm not, like, encouraging you to do that. That's not something you should do. Again, that might be, something for another day where I talk about that. But, yeah, pretty much I learned how calories work, and I do want to go more in depth into the walking thing because it gets really important, but at first, I was having some ankle issues because I had an injury that kind of re-aggravated. I was pretty heavy and putting a lot of stress on my body at the time. Like, you've probably heard that if you're, like, obese or even overweight to an extent, you don't want to do a lot of jogging or running. It's really hard on your joints. So, like, yeah, at first I was kind of overdoing it, especially because I was still very overweight and my body was feeling it. I didn't have proper walking shoes, and I don't want to really get into shoes too much today. That is a topic for another day when it comes to walking. But my step goals became higher and higher and higher and higher as I lost weight. And just to give you an idea of some of these, at first it was like 40 to 50,000, which was kind of crazy when I first hit it. A few people were actually kind of impressed because my family isn't the most active either. But then it was 60,000, and I remember I was on vacation for that one. That was like the first really difficult one for me. 80,000 was really, really tough. I think I did 81,000. And then the big one was 100,000. And that is a video for another day, of course, but I'm going to mention that I've done 100,000 steps 3+ times now. So, like, 100,000 in 2024, I did 110,000 in 2025, and then this year I also did 100,000 again, just one day out of the blue where I had the time to. And again, I would love to go more in depth with those one day because they were incredible days, very, very challenging. You can see people online who have, recorded most of their day doing that. I do have footage from those days, so maybe I'll get around to it at some point. But just to give you an idea, for 100,000 steps, you have to wake up at like 3 a.m. and you'll be done at like 11 p.m. Or you pull an all-nighter. There's not really like an in-between though. But pretty much that portion of my life got me from 299 pounds to about 201 in late 2024. And that kind of leads me into part two of this, which is where I'm still trying to lose weight today. 2025, I only averaged about 13,000 steps a day, maybe 14,000. But the problem is I completely gave up on the dieting side of things. I just did not care about what I was eating, I guess. I was so tired of feeling hungry. Like, I pretty much lost so much weight and was constantly feeling hungry and just got tired of it. Now, if you've ever heard the phrase, you can't outrun a bad diet, it's very true. It's very easy to out-eat what you've walked off, and I learned that the hard way in 2025. I don't want to spend too much time on 2025. Pretty much I walked a little bit more on average that year, but I did gain about 30 pounds just because I kept eating. And I don't have an exact calorie estimate, but I was just eating so much in 2025 was the problem. And that kind of continued into 2026, but that leads me into where I'm at today a little bit and kind of to the final part of this video, where I've started getting back on this weight loss journey and how it kind of ties in with my, gaming problem. So I got a little bit bored of just walking. And, I'll be honest, I still go out a lot on walks, but it's mostly at night because I just don't handle the heat well. Again, it's the summer. But I found myself more and more just listening to a podcast and, scrolling my phone and not paying attention while I was walking because I don't really enjoy these same paths as much as I used to. And at some point, there's just only so many places you can walk in, one city. Pretty much, though, I just preferred being home a lot of days over going outside and walking. So what I did is I combined those things. Walking pads are a huge deal. I had one for a bit. It wasn't really my thing. It was a lot of maintenance, and it took up a lot of space. I ended up selling my walking pad and just kind of walking back and forth around my room. That kind of sounds crazy, but what I actually ended up doing was kind of just combining my hobbies a little bit more. So, I walk back and forth while I'm playing games. That's kind of the obvious bit here. But a lot of people, they'll listen to podcasts, they'll listen to music while they're playing games. With these things in mind, I didn't want to deter from my experience of playing games. And obviously, some games it's just simply not possible to do this with. Like, if I need a keyboard and mouse, I'm not going to walk in place. I probably could get a standing desk or something. I don't know. That's besides the point. Pretty much, though, I did run into a few issues at first with this. The first being my steps were kind of weak at first. Like, I don't know how to really explain this, but when you're walking, you're pushing yourself forward. So I was trying as much as I could not to just walk in place while gaming, but also I was trying not to just take small, like, tiny steps and count them as real steps. I am going for exercise after all. So pretty much I wanted a good enough stride, whether I was in a bedroom or the living room or whatever, to get these steps in and make sure that I could still enjoy the game. Problem number two was my smartwatch wasn't detecting steps while I was holding, a traditional controller. And there's a couple of ways around this. Like I could have used a certain step tracker around my ankle or just a different watch that could detect this, but I found that Switch Joy-Cons were kind of the easy way around this situation. So I went on a bit of a shopping spree. I ended up buying a Legion Go at one point so that I could play my Steam library with, split controllers. And it worked really well at first. However, my PC is a lot stronger. What I ended up doing is buying two different sets of split controllers. I bought the Legion Go 2 controller, I think is what these ones are, and then these other MOBA pad controllers that technically go with the Switch. However, with an adapter, they work very well on PC. Now, again, if anybody is watching this, I'm not trying to sell you products here. It is worth mentioning, though, that with the MOBA pads, they also work with the PS3 if you have the adapter, which is hilarious because, like, I don't remember there being like external controller support, at least in that way for the PS3. So it's just been really convenient. I've been able to use them on like three different platforms and walk in place at the same time. And I know that like none of this is a requirement. Like literally, I could just ignore the missteps on my watch or whatever. But for me, I just really need to see those numbers go up. I don't know why, but yeah, another thing that I did is I threw a rug down that's like really soft so that I don't have to be wearing shoes constantly while doing this and, still not putting too much stress on my feet. And honestly, there's probably other things I could do to make it more convenient. Pretty much though, that's kind of my whole point of this is I kind of just found a workaround here that allowed me to get back on track. And so far it's really helped out. Like I've not only been hitting my step goals, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm averaging 24,000 steps a day this year now, and it's mainly just because I'm constantly walking. Like, once I'm free to do what I want, I still do what I want, but I walk while I'm doing it. And obviously for me, the next step would be just my diet, making sure I'm really locked in on that, because even if I am walking 24,000 a day, I still have to follow a pretty solid diet to get down my remaining 30 to 40 pounds that I want to get down. But this year alone, I'm down 10 to 12 pounds again, just from walking in place, like just doing these little things. And I guess that's really like the one thing that I would say to folks who are maybe listening to this is like, if you're not somebody who's already going to the gym and doing this anyway on the treadmill, like if you're somebody who watches TV shows or movies at home, if you're somebody who doom scrolls, like you can do all of that while walking. Like it might take a little bit of energy to get up at first, but once you're like doing it and you're getting used to it, it becomes really easy. And if you're somebody who does need to lose weight, it's just like kind of a cheat code. And I am aware that some people simply don't have walking as an option, so like my apologies there. Like there are other exercises you can do though. My whole point is like for me at least, learning to kind of multitask my exercise with my entertainment has at least helped me to continue the journey. I hope that at some point I can make an update on this as well, where I can hopefully explain that I've hit my weight goal or something like that, and that all of this has kind of helped. I do want to make sure that I continue getting that balance in of walking outside and like getting legitimate walks in and not just spending 100% of my time, playing games and walking at the same time. Like I'm starting to realize that one of the biggest downsides of this is when I sit down to play a game or if I sit down to watch a movie or do anything, I just feel so unproductive now. Like, man, I could be getting steps in while I do this, and it's kind of a downside. So I'm hoping to figure that out a little bit. But yeah, at some point, I would also love to go more in depth onto the other topics that I kind of brushed over in this video, like those 100,000 step days and, things like that. But today is not that day. If you are listening to this or watching this, thank you very much. It's been a long time since I've recorded. So, my apologies for the recording quality again. It's been a long time since I've recorded. I have been recording on YouTube like this for a very long time, just not on this channel. But I did want to talk about this. I'm not even going to ask anybody to like or subscribe or anything like that. I don't upload nearly enough to really justify it, but I do hope that somebody comes across this and at the bare minimum gets an idea of how they can improve their life or I don't know. I just hope that I can influence somebody in a positive way, I guess. Or at the bare minimum, I just need to make sure I hold myself accountable and I can come back to videos like this and be like, okay, we have not made any progress since this, or we have made a ton of progress since this. And so stuff like this just helps me. And the very last thing I want to talk about, I am so much better at Tony Hawk than this, I promise. The gameplay that you're going to see in this video, and maybe in a few other videos, isn't going to be the best. It was just all that I had, on my PS5 or on my PC laying around. So don't be too harsh on my Tony Hawk gameplay, especially the stuff from the new one, 3 and 4, because that one I was just doing a new save, and holy cow, trying to play this game without max stats is very difficult. But yeah, thank you for watching or listening. I really hope to make these videos easy to listen to while you're doing other things. That's about it though. Peace out.